session, and let me just make a couple of tweaks here. If you're not a member of SHIFCO, we're just glad you're here. We share a lot of these events publicly because we really are built to serve people that are trying to build purposeful, meaningful businesses. We do about 3 events a month. 2 of them are usually about your business. And so here's an example of 2 of those that are coming up later this month. We have Authentic Selling coming up on October 16th. And October 22nd, we have something called Business Simple, which is really about the scalability of the business. Today's session is on personal development, and it's going to be on confidence in particular. And for those of you that signed up that couldn't attend, really just strap in, because this body of work that I've created around confidence is so important. I think it's so important for people that are navigating change in their life, but certainly important for folks that are starting a business or have a business, because being an entrepreneur pushes every fear button you have, every not good enough button, every self-worth button, every fear button. That is the journey of entrepreneurship. So feel free to join us for any of our events, including the more business training focused events like the 2 that you see on the screen, as well as any of our personal development workshops as well. We do these free for entrepreneurs for the purpose of serving you. And then if you decide that you think SHIFCO can help you grow your business, we'd love to have you as part of our community. But shifting over to confidence, ironically, confidence is one of my favorite things to talk about because I struggled with it the vast majority of my life. And I consider my life a evolution in confidence. So I started my career, believe it or not, as a classroom teacher. So I'm almost 60, and said I want to save kids and save the world. And the irony of that is a big part of why I was drawn to that profession was because I was trying to prove that I was good enough. And I thought, well, if I save kids and save the world, then maybe I'll be good enough. And I believe we use our careers and we use our family and we use all sorts of things to validate our worth, to make us feel better about ourselves, when in reality, our self-worth and confidence is an internal game. It's not about the external measures. And much like that statement says, I used for the vast majority of my life, probably until about 10 years ago, I used my career, I used my income to validate my self-worth. And so it started first with this desire to become a teacher. I left teaching and went to work for an educational software company. And lo and behold, that's when I found out I had a natural gift for business. And then what did I do is I started to use success as a way to validate my sense of self-worth. And I just kept pushing myself to the next level and pushing myself to the next level. And when I make $100,000 a year, then I'll feel good enough. And when I have a vice president title, then I'll feel good enough. And this constant game that I was playing was certainly generating success, but not solving this idea of confidence. Then I had a career breakthrough. I became president of an internet company and based in Fort Worth called FlashNet, and had an incredible ride with them, culminating in an IPO. So that's a initial public offering. It's a big deal. Was on the cover of magazines. Guess what? Still didn't feel good enough. 9/11 happened, and September 11th profoundly impacted me. And so I left the corporate world and started my first business in 2002. And again, thought, well, I'm going to build a successful business. Maybe then I'll feel confident. And you can kind of see the pattern. And the reason why I like to be so vulnerable with you about this is because if you look at my resume, and in particular, if you've looked at what I've done the last 15 years, which I'll talk about in a minute, it's remarkable. But for the vast majority of that journey, that remarkable career success and financial success, for the vast majority of that, I did not feel good enough. And so much of my aspirations were trying to heal this part of myself that I just didn't feel good enough. So kind of leads me over to what I'm doing today. So I had multiple business exits, including that NASDAQ IPO. And then in 2009, I sold my business and started over with this crazy idea. There has to be a way to use my business growth skills to make a meaningful difference. Now, truth be told, when I did that in 2009, I was still trying to prove that I was good enough. So, although it sounds very altruistic, it was really driven by this part of myself that is not confident. But I created something pretty amazing called Share on Purpose. And Share on Purpose has two parts to it. It has a speculator. We invest in meaningful ideas. So this is the world's first zero waste makeup line called Your Izzy. So investor in that, others as well. And then we also have what we call the cultivator, where we create our own companies. Succeed on Purpose was number one in 2009, followed by Ignite on Purpose, Promote on Purpose, Talent on Purpose, and then Shipco is business number 5 that was created out of this portfolio. So again, if you look at this, you're like, oh my gosh, how have you done all of that? You must be such a confident person. And the truth is, I'm not. And I have really, really struggled the vast majority of my life, probably until maybe 5 to 10 years ago. But the methodologies that I'm going to introduce you today are how I began to chip away at these fractures of confidence and can stand wholly and fully in my failure and in my success and in my vulnerability. I can stand before you and say, in spite of all of the mistakes, in spite of the fact that I don't feel good enough, I have found my way towards a set of tools that remind me that I am good enough and that confidence is a choice. So that's what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk first about the 4 types of confidence, which was one of the first big breakthroughs that I got, was really beginning to understand what confidence was. Then we're going to talk about getting out of your comfort zone and why that both accelerates your confidence journey, but also pushes all of your not good enough buttons. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to introduce you to 2 frameworks, a framework and a model that I've built so that you can increase your confidence. And then we'll answer any questions you have. I'll remind you guys that the vast majority of the training that we do is on business growth. So I'll remind you of those events. But let's get started first with the 4 types of confidence. So as I began to, in 2002, is when I accepted the fact that deep down inside, I did not feel good enough and I was not a confident person, in spite of the fact that externally, I looked successful and I looked confident. And I began to really understand that there's different types of confidence, and my narrow view of what confidence was part of the reason why I was struggling with confidence. So there's 4 types. The first one I call developmental. Developmental is learning how to do new things. Ironically, I am very weak at developmental confidence. And every time I go to do something new that I'm uncomfortable with, I get raged with fear. Playing golf, every time I go to swing a golf club and I don't know how to do it, it just pushes these not good enough buttons. So developmental confidence is the degree with which you feel comfortable learning how to do something you've never done before. Mm-hmm. Why does that matter to entrepreneurs? As an entrepreneur, the vast majority of things you're going to do, you've never done before. And even if you have done them before, you're going to have to do them in a different way. So developmental confidence and beginning to understand what that is critical. The second type is performance confidence. I'm very strong in performance confidence. Once I know I can do something, I am very confident that I can become good at it if I choose to put my mind to it. So let's say that I became comfortable swinging that golf club, which today I'm in fear of. Let's just say that I had a couple of lessons and I thought, oh, I can do this. Well, boom, performance confidence kicks in. And now I'm like, I can study, I can learn, I can get help. And performance confidence is when you feel like if I put the effort in, I can be good at this. So you can see those are two very, very different things. And I want you to self
Yeah.
assess a little bit. Which of those two do you think you're good at? And which ones do you think maybe you need a little work? There's no right, no wrong answer. It's going to be as much for your benefit as it is for the exercise. Third type of confidence is emotional confidence. And emotional confidence is managing your emotional state, recognizing that you feel afraid. For example, right now, this is a challenging time to be alive. There's these storms, that are hitting us. There's this political strife. A lot of people are just angry. Gun violence is spiking. Violence and crime is spiking. The inflation is high. The markets, up, down, you can't really tell. So that pushes our buttons when the world doesn't feel very stable. And when we have weak emotional confidence, we feel like we can't handle it. We we doubt ourselves. We feel at effect of our circumstances. When somebody is strong in emotional confidence, they know how to shift their emotions. They know how to say, "I'm not going to be afraid. I'm going to stand in my power, and I'm going to face this storm. I can do it." So that's what emotional confidence is. Soulful confidence, it's a word that I made up. What soulful confidence is just trusting that there's just a higher force towards good, that all of these things that are happening for us, not to us. Let me go a little deeper in these four types and give you examples. So, developmental confidence, when you start a business, you've got to learn how to do marketing and sales. That's just part of the package. That's why we've got the authentic selling class coming up later this month. You got to learn that. So, if you have a weak developmental confidence, as I did when I first was thinking about becoming an entrepreneur in 2002, what I was most afraid of is that I couldn't learn how to do marketing and sales for myself. And keep in mind, I had been in marketing and sales in my corporate career, marketing and selling companies, but I'd never marketed and sold myself. So my developmental confidence was just flailing around. I was just scared. How am I going to do this? Oh my God, I don't know how. I'm so scared. What if I get all this rejection? So that's what it would look like if you had developmental confidence in that area. Performance confidence is, okay, I think I can do it. Now, how do I get better at it? If somebody is weak in performance confidence, they second guess themselves, they bounce around from idea or program, maybe that'll do it, maybe that'll do it, but they don't really trust themselves to get better at whatever it is that they're learning. Emotional confidence is, I'm feeling anxious. I've got a client meeting coming up. I'm afraid. I don't know why. When you have emotional confidence, you recognize I can change my emotional state. I know what to do so that I can deal with that anxiousness and fear. And when we're weak in emotional confidence, we're not confident that we can change our emotional state, which we'll be talking a lot about today, by the way. And then soulful confidence is trusting that even the difficult parts of being an entrepreneur is going to lead to positive outcomes. Ironically, in spite of the success I've had, I've failed more in the last 25 years as an entrepreneur than most people fail their entire life. And but I have a really strong soulful confidence. So I look at failure as this thing that I failed at is going to lead me to something better. So the irony of confidence is developmental and performance are a function of emotional and soulful confidence. What that means is the stronger you get at emotional and soulful confidence, which we're going to be working on a lot today, the better your developmental and performance confidence. And I probably have a 90% on the performance, but probably only a 50 or 60 on developmental. And I've been working on it for a while. But emotional and soulful confidence is where the breakthroughs are. And that's really where we're going to focus today, is how do we get better at emotional and soulful confidence, which over time are going to help us build developmental and performance confidence. Okay, so let's talk about that. So the first thing you have to do to build confidence, particularly emotional confidence, is get out of your comfort zone. This is not something that I created. Somebody else created. I've yet to find the original author, but this is ingenious, this little tool here. And there's going to be a graphic that will be stationary here in a minute if you want to take a picture of it. This is truly how you build confidence. So the first thing that has to happen is you have to be okay getting outside of your comfort zone. What happens to us is the ego will contract. So it will pull our life in. It'll say, stay here where it's safe and we're in control. And as long as I'm safe and I'm in control, I'm happy. And so the ego plays this game with us that if we can stay inside our comfort zone, we'll be safe, we'll be okay. The problem is the very next zone is the fear zone. So let's say I try something new, I start a business. Guess what? Everything about starting a business is going to pull you out of the comfort zone and put you into the fear zone. And that's why most people don't start a business. And that's why most people give up on a business they've started, is they feel that fear and they think, oh my gosh, I can't do it. Not realizing feeling of fear is actually a sign that you are. That is how you know you're about to have a breakthrough, is because you will feel fear. You will feel a lack of self-confidence. You'll feel affected by other people's opinions. You'll feel yourself wanting to find excuses and all the reasons why I can't do it. That is a sign that you're pushing out of your comfort zone and you're on the verge of a breakthrough. So the irony is, feeling of fear is always, and I mean 100% always, an indication that you are about to have a breakthrough because you're out of your comfort zone. What's on the other side of the fear zone, this author calls the learning zone. How do you get yourself out of the fear zone? You get busy studying. You start learning from other people. You read books, you take classes, you do things like we're doing here today. You say, I'm going to learn some new skills. I'm going to deal with these challenges. I refuse to allow myself to be a victim of this fear and anxiety. And that's when you move into the learning zone. The last zone is beautiful. And the last zone is when you are so good at moving out of the comfort zone, moving through the fear zone, and really getting into the learning zone that you go into the growth zone. And the growth zone is where the breakthroughs actually occur. So let's go through that sequence. Is you stay comfortable and you don't really get anywhere. You start pushing yourself. Wow, that doesn't feel good. It never feels good. I don't care whether we're talking about golf or starting a business or starting a new relationship. It never feels good when you're in the fear zone. But if you keep pushing yourself and you just say, no, I'm going to push through this, you'll go into the learning zone. And then it's in the learning zone where you really develop what you need to be in the growth zone. So the irony of how you build confidence is you get outside of the comfort zone and you allow yourself to feel that fear, which we're going to be working on today. And you move yourself through that and say, who can I learn from? What can I learn? What books can I read? What classes can I take? Because I don't want to be held hostage to my fear. Next thing you know, you've got a breakthrough and things are working out for you. Now, I want to give you a framework that I use in one of our programs inside of ShiftCo. We have a 6-week program on pure confidence, and it breaks it down into these layers. And I adapted this from one of my coaches, Iyanla Van Zant, and her book that she covered this was called In the Meantime. And so the first level is called the basement. And in the basement, nothing's wrong. It's everybody else. A lot of people are in the basement right now. Everybody's blaming somebody else, right? And anytime you're blaming somebody else, you're in the basement. And the basement is not where growth occurs. The first floor is when you start to realize, hey, something is wrong inside of me. I don't know what it is, but something is wrong inside of me. I've got a confidence issue. I've got a self-worth issue. And we call that the first floor. We're going to go through the first floor here in a minute. And on the first floor, what you're really trying to do is you're trying to identify what is holding me back. What is the pattern that I'm stuck in here? What is holding me back? And the first floor is when you go from the comfort zone into the fear zone, because it doesn't feel good to be on this first floor because you're looking at your stuff and you're looking at your stuff and you're like, yeah, that's me. I got that challenge. But that is where the beginning of the breakthrough actually occurs. And then you move to the second floor. On the second floor, you can say, something is wrong inside me. I know what it is. It's self-worth, but I don't really know what to do about it. That's when you move into the learning zone that we talked about a minute ago. And then the third floor is where you really start doing the work from the second to the third floor. And the third floor is peaceful because you can say something is wrong inside me. I now know what it is because I identified it on the first to the second floor, but I also worked in the second floor and now I know what to do about it. And that is power, folks, when you can say, hey, something is off. I had this happen to me this morning. I was just feeling off. And I have a little tool that I use to help me figure out what that thing is. I'm going to teach you that tool here in a minute. And I'm like, oh, the truth is I feel angry. Why do I feel angry? You know, life is good. And so I was able to process that and I knew what it was and I knew what to do about it. And then I felt fine. Well, that process I'm going to walk you through from the first floor into the second floor. And if you keep using the tools, you're going to find yourself moving into that third floor. So let's talk about how we identify these areas. And by the way, I know I'm covering a lot fast. I will pause the recording at the end and take questions. I'm only moving through that just because there'll be some people that will be listening in afterwards. So let's talk about how we figure out, how do we really identify on that first floor, what's really going on in me? Why do I feel so scared? Why do I feel anxious? You know, is it the world or is it me? The key to this conscious awareness is you have to stop blaming others. It's nobody else's fault for the way that we feel. We have 100% control about how we feel and 100% control over how we feel. So this conscious mind awareness it's a very interesting place because most of what we're perceiving is at a conscious level. And so the goal is to try to make our thoughts and our emotions more conscious so that we can do something about them. The challenge is in the subconscious is where our thoughts and our emotions are. So what does that mean? What that means is what I'm thinking and feeling at any given moment, I am not aware of. At any given moment, what I am thinking and feeling, I am not conscious of. That's the rub. And that's why we blame is we feel disturbed, we feel afraid, we feel victimized, we feel anxious. And we're not fully conscious of those feelings and thoughts. And so we start to look to blame others. It's the environment, it's politics, it's the news, it's my ex, it's, you know, this client. We start blaming other people because we're not fully aware of what we are thinking and feeling. And that's why this moving from the basement to the first floor is so important. And then most of our barriers, which are simply repeated beliefs that are blocking our success, most of those are occurring in the unconscious mind where, you know, something that happened to us when we were 6 is replaying in our mind. Well, what we want to do with this exercise, we're going to work on the subconscious layer and a little bit on the unconscious layer. And we're going to try to pull up what it is that is bothering us. What is it that we are afraid of? What is that we're anxious about? We're going to look at it. Now, I want to warn you, this exercise that we're going to go through in a minute, it's not going to feel good at first. So you're going to feel uncomfortable when you start to do it. I'm going to just encourage you to stay with it because I'm going to give you tools so you do feel better. And more importantly, you're going to have these tools so that you can use them again and again and again to make sure that you're not held hostage by these old beliefs and these old patterns. So you will feel in a minute some discomfort. Just stay with it. Just keep breathing because I'm going to give you tools so that you feel better, irregardless. All right, so let's look at these barriers. Barriers are things that are holding us back. So think of a fence, right? A fence is a barrier. It keeps us on one side or the other. From my research, I've identified that there are 14 barriers that hold people back from achieving success, achieving prosperity, starting a business, building their career, whatever. Some of them are at the conscious level, which means we're aware of them. And some of them are at the subconscious level, and some of them are buried deep at the unconscious level. And the ones on the subconscious and the ones on the unconscious, those are going to be the ones that are going to push your buttons. So the ones at the top, we're aware of these. Time management. People that struggle with time management, they're always late or they take on too much. Trust and confidence. Generically, do I trust other people? Do I feel confident? We can have conversations about that. We don't always like it, but we can have that. We're aware of it. Perfectionism, people that everything has to be perfect, everything has to be a certain way. Willingness to act versus being unwilling to push through. And then fear and addiction, general fear, addiction, food is my drug of choice. When I'm not feeling good, I eat unhealthy foods. So those 5 are at the conscious level, which means we have some awareness that they exist. They're not pushing our buttons. But those are not the ones that are causing the problems. The ones that are causing the problems are at the subconscious and the unconscious level. The ones at the top are really just coping mechanisms for the other. So we're going to go a little deeper, just as a reminder. This next section is going to make you uncomfortable. Just keep breathing. Just trust me. Stay with it. And then we're going to give you some tools so that you're not held hostage by these things. So the first one is self-awareness. Self-awareness is owning your stuff. And when people are not very self-aware, they tend to live in the basement, and it's always everybody else's fault. So self-awareness, when you come face to face with self-awareness, you start to realize, oh my God, I've been lying to myself about these things. Fear of what other people think. Think about that. Do you worry, when you introduce yourself, do you second guess yourself? When you meet somebody new, are you walking away from the conversation, kicking yourself? I can't believe I said that. What's wrong with me? Need to be right is there's a lot of that happening in our world right now where people need to be right and they have to make everybody else wrong. And then 2 big ones, need to control and fear of failure. When people need to control things, they try to control people and circumstances and try to make things be a certain way. And when these things are a certain way, then I'll feel good. And then fear of failure. Again, fear of failure. 98 to 99% of people have fear of failure, but people don't talk about it. So you can see now, maybe you're feeling a little bit of discomfort. And that discomfort is because you're pushing yourself to the edge of that comfort zone and you're starting to go, I do that sometimes. Oh, that doesn't feel good to look at, right? Just stay with it. Just breathe and look at it. You see, fear and confidence are like the monster under the bed. When we were a kid, we're afraid about that monster under the bed or in the closet. And then, you get brave and you just whip open the closet and you realize there's no monster in the closet. Well, that's what fear and confidence it's this monster that's in the closet that we're running around being afraid of. But if we'll just rip open the closet and look at it and look at what's causing us to be afraid and what's causing us to lack confidence, if we just look at it, it loses its power over us. So just breathe through that. And then we're going to get to the 4 biggies. There are 4 unconscious barriers related to fear and confidence. And these four are the root of all of our issues. They are the root of all of our issues. The first two are tricky. Fear of success is when there was a consequence to success when we were a little kid. Maybe if this was mine when I was a good girl. Let me give you a little context for this. Both of my parents were raging alcoholics, and we were impoverished. I was abused in every way possible as a child, and so I tried to always make things better and make my parents happy, which was an impossible job, as you can imagine, as raging alcoholics. And so at 4, 5, 6 years old, they're not home to take care of us. I'm there with my brother, who's only a year older. And I decide at 4, 5, 6 years old that I'm going to try to clean the house so that I can take care of my family at 4, 5, and 6 years old. Well, what happened is I became good at those things. And guess what happened? My parents just put more and more onto my plate, more and more responsibility every year, more and more responsibility. So I developed a fear of success, and that I have a deeply held fear that if I achieve my goals, that it will be too much for me to handle. I'm working on that. That's one of the barriers I'm working on this year. So fear of success, it could have been you were compared to a sibling, or a parent was super successful and you felt like you couldn't live up to them. Or in my case, the more success you had, the more responsibility you got. So that's an example of fear of success. Need to know is when you feel like you need to know how things are going to work out in order to move forward. This is paralyzing when you're an entrepreneur, because you feel like I need to know how to do this before I take a step. I need to know how to do that before I take a step. And then what happens is you never really get anywhere, because to be an entrepreneur, you have to live in the unknown. It's the only way you can be an entrepreneur, is to live in the unknown. So if you have a need to know barrier, you need to be comfortable. You need to be in that comfort zone before you take a step forward. It's impossible. So need to know can really hold you back. The last two are the biggest, and I find that they are the two that cause most people to limit their success and their potential. The first one is not good enough. And a very important statistic: in our first 8 years of life, we make a decision in our first 8 years of life of whether or not we are good enough or whether or not we are not good enough. The vast majority of people, 90 to 95%, make the choice that they are not good enough. And then they spend their life trying to prove that they are good enough. And this not good enough is the number one barrier that I see in the people I've studied. I've studied thousands of people, and not good enough is a biggie. And then self-worth is when we have a self-worth issue, we put other people's needs above our own. And whereas not good enough is a little bit, you're higher than me, everybody's smarter than me, everybody's more beautiful than I am, and I'm putting myself down here, kind of big you, little me. Self-worth is where you put other people's needs and wants ahead of your own needs and wants. So, this is a lot, right? So you might be feeling a little stressed right now. Just breathe with me. Again, I'm going to give you tools. But the most important thing you can do, and I would encourage you to take a picture of the screen, is to circle the ones. So take a picture of it, print it out, circle the ones that you feel like are holding you back, because it is the monster that is in the closet. And it is holding you back, but it's not real. It's just something that has to be broken down. So what this barrier identification does is it allows us to begin to identify what's holding us back so we can do something about it. It's moving from the comfort zone into the fear zone, because it doesn't feel good to look at these fears. We're in the fear zone right now because we're looking at them. and it doesn't feel good. But if you just keep moving through it, what you're going to find is you're going to find that it's just the monster in the closet and you have a way to break through it. Lisa, check the chat here. I'm going to share one other thing, and then if there's a question that comes in, I want to take that before we go into the tools section. The other thing about this that I've learned is the barriers are connected. So after you print this out and you circle the ones that are yours, look for how they're connected, because those are patterns that you're running. I'll give you an example. Is when I feel like something has to be perfect, oh, I can't have a spelling error on a slide, or, oh, I can't believe that, I made that mistake. What that really means is I'm in need to control and I'm trying to make everything perfect. And what that really means is I'm feeling not good enough. So when I feel not good enough, I try to control things. I try to make things be a certain way. And then I try to perfect things, and I become judgmental when things aren't the way that I wanted them to be. All of that stems from feeling not good enough. And the irony is, not good enough is the real monster. If I'll just rip open the closet and look at that and work on not good enough, the rest of it goes away. Lisa, was there a question that came in the chat before we go into the tools section?
Yeah, it looked like Stephanie was having a hard time. She couldn't see anything, but I can see it, so it's there. It might be.
So Stephanie, you can't see the slides. Can you see them now, Stephanie?
No, I don't see them. I've switched the views around. It's okay. I'll look at the YouTube posting later.
Okay, cool. Other questions before we get into the tools section? So just breathe. Just breathe, just breathe, just breathe. We're going to tackle these, and I'm going to give you a suite of tools to work through them. The first one is called the success switch. We'll be running a full class on this in November. And there's also one on the full classes on our YouTube page. So feel free to check that out. So what the success switch is, I'm going to give you the short version of it, and you're going to do it with me here because it's super powerful. The success switch is 3 steps to switch on a part of your brain so that that feeling is no longer holding you hostage. Okay, so you're going to do an exercise with me. And again, if you want to listen to the full training on this, it is on our YouTube page. So it's 3 steps, A, B, C. A stands for acknowledge. So what we're going to do with A is we're going to use a phrase, and the phrase, you're going to say it out loud, make sure you're on mute. The phrase will cause a part of your brain to stop its negative program, whatever program it's running. And it will turn to the prefrontal cortex and it'll say, give me new information. The amygdala is the dumb part of our brain, but it is also the part of our brain that's running us. All of these fears and lack of confidence, they're in the amygdala. So what we do with the first step is you say out loud, the truth is I feel. And whatever comes up, comes up. The truth is I feel afraid. The truth is I feel anxious. The truth is I feel tired. The truth is I feel angry. So whatever that is, I want everybody to do it. And then we're going to wait about 15, 20 seconds. And when I do it with you here in a minute, I want you to do it with me then. But when you wait that 15 to 20 to 25 seconds, what you're going to feel is you're going to feel your brain start to slow down. That is the amygdala starting to stop. It's like the amygdala is in 5th gear and it's running this negative program. And when you do the acknowledge phrase, the truth is I feel, whatever comes up, the amygdala starts to slow down and it downshifts, and then it turns to the prefrontal cortex and says, give me new information. So I want you to feel this because it's mind blowing how easy it is to switch your brain. So do it with me now. The truth is I feel, and I'm going to say afraid, and then just wait. about 15, 20, 25 seconds. Notice how your brain started to slow down, and notice how that program that was running you, mine was, the truth is I feel afraid because I'm afraid you're judging me right now. Right? So that, like, who does that, right? Well, we all do it. So when I say the truth is I feel, and the amygdala then downshifts and it stops running the program. It is now very easy to program the amygdala. So when you get it to stop, think of it like if a car is in gear and it stops, it's jolting, right? But if you can get the car to slow down, downshift, it's not jolting, right? So that's when you acknowledge that's what's happening, is the amygdala is downshifting, and then it's in neutral. And now I can turn to the right or I can turn to the left. I can program it where I want to go. Think of it like a GPS. If your GPS is running a program and the car is going, it's really hard to stop and give it a new program. But if you stop and you say, the truth is I feel, it's like you're stopping the car, and then you can put in a new program. Well, we're now going to program the amygdala. And the way that you do that is 4 breaths. And when you take these 4 breaths, you breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. What it does is it activates the prefrontal cortex, which turns on the parasympathetic nervous system, and it floods your bloodstream and the amygdala with happiness chemicals and hormones. It's like, wow, serotonin, dopamine. Wow, that feels good. So do that with me, because we've got the amygdala paused. We're going to do it together so you can feel it again. The truth is I feel. Whatever comes up, comes up. Pause. Wait for the amygdala to slow down. 15, 20 seconds. Now 4 breaths in through the nose and out of your mouth. In through your nose, out of your mouth. Notice how you're feeling better. 2 more. One more. Now you probably feel a little lightheaded right now. Those are all, that's serotonin and dopamine in your bloodstream going into the amygdala. It's now relaxed. It's now super easy to program. The amygdala is now swimming in serotonin and dopamine, and it's easy to program now. That is the C. So ABC. C is claim a new belief. And so you visualize it with images. I am powerful. I am captain of my own ship. I am a guru. Whatever you want to say, you want to instill in the amygdala a new belief. And I always like to visualize it and picture it. I'll do my little Rocky punches and just, I am powerful, and I feel it. So do that right now, just basically because the amygdala is very programmable right now. Just claim a new belief. I am strong. I am powerful. I'm healthy. I am amazing. The world is coming to me for insights. Whatever it is, claim that new belief. Feel. Powerful. Now, here's the trick about the success switch. If you do it twice a day for 7 days, whatever that negative program will fall apart. That's all it takes. 7 days a day. Put it on your calendar and do it. And it is just A, B, and C. I do it probably 3 times a day, sometimes 4 if I'm having a rough day. I tackle each one of those beliefs that I have. I break them down by using the success switch. It's a game changer. Okay, the next part of this is, how do you actually break that belief? So the success switch is like one of the tools that you put in your tool belt. The Pure Confidence Toolkit, the model, is a process. So the first thing that has to happen is you have to make a commitment to yourself to evolve. So remember a minute ago, I told you that fear of success was really catching up with me because I had this, when I was a kid, and I would do things to take care of our family. And then I just kept getting more and more responsibility. Well, I realized that this year that I was having fear of success, and I just made a commitment to evolve it. And I have things that I do every day, like the success switch. I have a meditation that I do every day. I have some other practices that I do, but I committed to evolving. I committed to changing it. I don't want to be held back by that. The second part is you have to own your stuff. You have to realize the vast majority of things that you're feeling are really creations in your mind. They're not real. And keep in mind, I've been abused in every way possible. I've been poor. We had roaches in our house when I was a kid. My friends would make fun of me. As an adult, I've had major relationships where I was hurt really bad. I've been almost bankrupt before. I almost lost my house. So I've had lots and lots of challenges, but the vast majority of them, I made them bigger in my own mind. And so what you're really doing with Own Your Stuff is you're saying, I'm going to commit. I'm not going to be held back by these circumstances. I'm going to evolve myself. Boom. I'm going to own my beliefs. I'm going to own my feeling. I'm not going to be at effect of my thoughts and my emotions. I am going to change them because I own it. I am powerful enough to change it. Third is you got to release it. And that's why the success switch is so powerful, is the releasing it. You don't need to dig it up. You just have to breathe it out of your body. You've got to stop, get those negative thoughts out of the amygdala, and just begin a practice of releasing it and just commit to that. And then the last part is to just elevate your energy. And the fascinating thing with that, tons of research on this, by the way, the number one thing that you can do to elevate your energy is nature, music. Yeah. These are all things that are my go-to: nature and music and movement. So you can get out in nature, you can listen to your favorite song, and you can move. Even if you just move and you just sit here and do some Rocky punches, your energy will get elevated, and you'll realize it's not as bad as it seems. I'm not as fearful as I thought I was if I just move a little bit. So that's the process that you can use. And again, there's a whole lot more to this, but it'll give you enough tools to get you started. And I'm going to circle back to where we began. And that is, it all begins with getting out of your comfort zone. So pick one of those barriers that we identified a minute ago. Pick one and just say, for the next 7 days, I'm going to use the success switch, and I'm going to commit to changing that. And lo and behold, in the first day that you do it, you're going to feel yourself in the fear zone. But if you keep moving through it, the next thing you know, you're going to have the tools that you need. You're going to not feel hostage, and you're going to find yourself moving into the growth zone. So that's how it works. By the way, if you are interested in joining Shipco to grow your business, it's $235 a month, no long-term commitment. 84.9% of our members have more than doubled their income since joining. So we're here to help you. Please attend these other events. These are the two business training events that we have. October 16th is Authentic Selling. October 22nd is Business Simple. They're all free to attend as you get to know us. And I'm going to stop the recording and see what questions we have.